Hello, hi everyone. Welcome back to Woo Can Cook. My name is Wesley, and this is a show where we are slowly cooking our way through all of the food from my childhood. Today we're diving back into our series dedicated to the wonderful weird world of Asian fusion cuisine with a request from the gift recipes subreddit for a wok fried garlic noodle. Now, for those who are not familiar, the concept of garlic noodles appears throughout many different food cultures, including but not limited to Chinese cuisine. It is, after all, not a very complicated concept. This, of course, gives us an endless amount of leeway with creative interpretation. So for our version today, I'll be drawing some inspiration from the Italian pasta dish, pasta Aglio e Olio, or more colloquially here in the States, pasta with garlic and olive oil. You may also recognize this as the pantry pasta dish from the movie Chef. This dish is most iconically done with spaghetti, red chili flake, parsley, and a whole bunch of garlic that has been cooked on low heat in olive oil for an aromatic finish. For our version today, we'll be borrowing this low and slow technique for our garlic, but then swapping in a few classic elements that you'll likely recognize from more traditional Chinese wok cooking, which are some dry toasted Tian Jin peppers and Sichuan peppercorn in lieu of our red chili flake, some thinly sliced green onions in lieu of our parsley, some toasted sesame oil in lieu of our olive oil, and finally, some super thin fresh egg noodles that we're gonna wok fry for a wonderfully crispy quality that you'll likely recognize from a lot of classic Chinese takeout. Okay, so let's get into it. Okay, so kicking things off here, up first is our garlic. Now, this is optional as it also is in a pasta aglio e olio, but for presentation purposes today, we're gonna thinly slice our garlic instead of crushing it like we normally would do. This is gonna give our garlic a little bit more physical presence in our finished dish, but since we aren't crushing it though, the allicin in the garlic won't release as well, meaning that we're gonna have to use a lot more garlic than we normally would. This is 12 cloves of garlic, or about half a head here. This also feels like a good time for a quick reminder that crushing your garlic makes it a lot easier to peel too. Once we have our garlic peeled, I'm slicing these up as thinly as possible, then moving on to my ginger next. We'll still be using our ginger as an aromatic today, so I'm peeling this and then finely mincing 1 inch or about 1 tablespoon here, then moving on to my green onions next. I'm separating these by their whites and greens and then removing the root end, slicing up the whites thinly for our aromatics, and finally slicing up the greens on a bias for our finishing garnish. Moving on to our sauce element, I'm keeping things fairly simple with this bit today because I want the primary focus of our dish to be on our aromatic garlic and dry pepper elements, as you would often see in an aglio e olio. This is 4 tablespoons of soy sauce to start, followed by 2 tablespoons of rice vinegar for some brightness, 1 tablespoon of dark soy sauce for a bit of umami, and finally 2 tablespoons of lao gan ma chili crisp oil to really round out our heat today. Then next up, I'm combining a blend of my 2 favorite aromatic oils. This is a 1/4 cup each of toasted sesame oil and peanut oil to pair with our garlic today. Finally, last up before we head over to the stove, I'm portioning out my noodles here. This is 1 pound of fresh Hong Kong style thin egg noodles. I'm separating these into 4 equal nests and then just pulling these apart into loose clumps so we don't have a mess of dough going into the wok later on. Once we have this nice and separated, I'm setting this all aside and we're heading over to the stove. Over on the stove, I've got a dry wok heating up on medium-low heat here so that we can dry toast our peppers. Very important, we want that wok to be at a relatively low heat right now or else those peppers are gonna burn. First up are my dried Tian Jins. As a reminder, these peppers are wonderfully aromatic and fragrant, but not edible though, so we're gonna just bloom these out for their fragrance with a quick dry toast and then toss them into our wok fry. After that, you can go ahead and either pick them out or just leave them in for presentation. They certainly are very pretty. We're giving these about 1 minute on the stove until fragrant, then removing, setting aside, and repeating with my Sichuan peppercorns next. As with the Tian Jin peppers, I'm doing this again over medium-low heat to prevent them from burning. Once they're nice and fragrant, I'm removing them from heat, dropping them into a mortar and pestle, and then giving these a quick crush until a fine powder forms. Back over on the stove, we're getting ready for our wok fry next. I've got my wok heated up at high heat now, and then I'm adding 4 tablespoons of oil and, as always, long yao for that nice non-stick surface. Then first up are our noodles going in raw for a 2-minute sear. Now, if you're like me, I did not realize that these noodles are meant to be cooked raw. This is how you get that super crispy texture. So avoid that basic instinct in you to do this in a pot of boiling water, or else you're gonna end up with a hot, mushy mess like this. This did not work. Don't do this. I'm repeating this 3 more times with my remaining noodles until we're left with a bowl full of these wonderfully voluminous egg noodles. Next up, I'm bringing my wok back down to medium-low heat, then adding my oil blend to the wok, followed by my garlic. We're letting this simmer real low and slow for about 10 minutes until that garlic becomes fragrant and starts turning a nice light brown color. Again, as always, remember to account for carryover cook and pull this off heat at about 80% doneness, or else you're gonna have some burnt garlic on your hands. Next up, I'm setting our garlic aside, but reserving 2 tablespoons of our oil blend in the wok, bringing my fire back up to high heat and getting to work on our wok fry next. Up first are my remaining aromatic elements. Here's my ginger and the whites of my green onions going in first. We're blooming these for about 15 seconds until fragrant, then followed by my noodles going back in, followed by my Tian Jin peppers, Sichuan peppercorn, and finally my infused garlic oil. I'm tossing this all to combine, which by the way proved to be a little bit more difficult than I expected at first because these noodles are very crispy now. Once that oil gets in the wok though, things should start loosening up a little bit. Finally, I'm rounding this all off with my sauce element here going in about 2 or 3 tablespoons at a time. I'm adding this bit to taste as always, be very careful not to over season at this point. A friendly reminder one more time that dark soy sauce is very concentrated. Then I'm removing this all from heat, finishing with the greens of my green onions, and we're ready to eat. Okay, so as simple as this dish might appear to be, it is essentially just a souped up pantry pasta dish after all. This one was deceptively difficult to get right and actually took me 3 separate attempts to nail down correctly. As with many Asian noodles, those super thin egg noodles are really delicate and can get away from you pretty quickly if you start spacing out, which I often do. If you get it right though, the shallow wok fry method causes those noodles to develop a slightly rigid texture in the fry, giving them a wonderfully crispy and crunchy quality with an interesting volume to it that is unlike any other noodle that I have ever attempted. Our aromatic dry peppers give a nice understated form of heat to the dish, rounded out by our garlic-infused aromatic oil for a nice homage to my favorite Italian pantry pasta. Finally, I'm not necessarily saying that this is a healthy option per se, but it does rank pretty high on my list for tasty vegetarian ideas though, so if that's your game, this is a good one to take a shot at. Okay, so that's it everyone. I hope you enjoyed this and I hope you give this one a shot. For those who are new to this series, this one's actually part of a larger series that we've been doing that's dedicated to Asian fusion cuisine, including a couple of different recipes inspired by Italian pastas, so definitely check that out next if you haven't yet, because there's a lot of these. We'll be cooking through this one live this coming Tuesday at 6:30 PST right here on the YouTube channel, so tune in then and cook along with me if you can. Lastly, for those who are local to the California Bay Area, the Woo Can Cook Fried Rice pop-up is back at the h.e.r. Farmers Market this coming Saturday, so swing by and come say hi then if you can. More about that at woocancook.com/eats. As always, like, comment, subscribe, share, be nice humans, and I'll see you soon.